10 ancient structures, sealed in the caves. Beneath Queensland, Queensland's cave systems stretch for hundreds of kilometres beneath the red earth and sandstone country of one of Australia's oldest landmasses. Most people know Queensland for its beaches, its reef, and its relentless heat. Very few people know what sits underneath it. For decades, a quiet argument has been running between geologists, independent researchers, and a handful of archaeologists who have spent real time in the darker places of this continent. The argument is simple enough on the surface. Some of what sits inside Queensland's cave networks is not natural. The geometry is wrong, the placement is too deliberate, and the age does not fit any comfortable story about Australian prehistory. We are not talking about random stone arrangements. We are talking about sealed chambers, carved doorways cut into limestone walls, alignment corridors that track the winter solstice sunrise, and subterranean platforms that required the removal of thousands of tons of material by hands that left almost no other record. Queensland sits on some of the oldest exposed rock on Earth. The sandstone escarpments of the Canavan Gorge system contain cave art dated conservatively to 36,000 years before the present. The Cape York limestone karst reaches depths that have never been formally surveyed, and beneath the Bunya Mountains, locals have been finding things for over a century that nobody in an official capacity has ever wanted to discuss. What you are about to hear is drawn from geological survey records, independent field research, the oral traditions of the Bigambul, Waka Waka, Tarabalang Bunda, and Butchulla peoples, and from a small group of cavers and surveyors who have spent years moving through systems most Australians do not know exist. Some of these structures have been formally acknowledged in environmental impact assessments and then quietly buried in appendices nobody reads. Some have never been reported at all. All of them raise the same question: how long have people been building things beneath this country, and what were they building them for? Stay with this, because what waits at the bottom of Queensland is older and stranger than almost anything you have heard before. Number 1. The Canavan Gorge Alignment Chamber. Deep inside the Canavan Gorge system in central Queensland, approximately 4 kilometres from the nearest marked walking trail, there is a sandstone chamber that does not appear in any tourist literature and is not marked on publicly available cave survey maps. It was documented in 2003 by a geological survey team conducting baseline work for a proposed energy corridor. The report described a roughly rectangular chamber, approximately 11 metres long and 7 metres wide, with a ceiling height of around 4 metres at its apex. What caught the team's attention was the entrance. It had been cut, not worn smooth by water, not shaped by differential erosion. Cut. The lintel stone across the top of the entrance was a single piece of sandstone, showing parallel striations consistent with tool use on its underside. The chamber floor had been levelled. The survey team's geologist noted that the natural floor should have sloped at roughly 15 degrees toward the back wall. Instead, it was flat, and the material that would have occupied that space was gone. There is no debris pile inside or outside the chamber, consistent with the removal of that volume of stone. In the back wall, at approximately 1 metre and 40 centimetres from the floor, there is a rectangular recess cut into the rock with corners at 90 degrees. The survey team photographed it and noted it in their report. No follow-up investigation was ever commissioned. The Waka Waka people, whose country this falls within, refer to the Canavan system as a place where the old ones did their learning work underground. An independent researcher who revisited the site in 2011 noted that on the morning of the winter solstice, light entering through the cut entrance illuminates the rectangular recess precisely and completely for approximately 12 minutes. This is not coincidence. This is engineering. Number 2. The Great Dividing Range Void. The Queensland section of the Great Dividing Range contains an extensive and still incompletely mapped karst system running parallel to the range for several hundred kilometres. In 2008, a caving group entered a previously unrecorded void accessed through a sinkhole near the headwaters of a Condamine River tributary. The void was large, roughly 60 metres in diameter at its widest point, with a domed ceiling reaching approximately 20 metres at its highest. The floor was covered in a fine silt deposit, consistent with periodic flooding, but in the centre of the chamber, rising from the silt, there was a platform. It stood approximately 1 metre high. It was roughly circular, around 8 metres in diameter, and it was constructed from flat limestone slabs that had been brought to the site from elsewhere. The geology of the chamber walls is a different limestone formation from the slabs used in the platform. Someone transported those stones into that void, down through a sinkhole system, and arranged them into a structure. A caving team member who happened to have a background in sedimentology cored the silt around the platform's base. The sample showed the layer beneath the lowest course of platform stones to be significantly compacted relative to surrounding silt, suggesting the stones had been in place long enough for sediment to compress under sustained weight across a minimum of several centuries. No formal archaeological investigation has ever been conducted. The Bigambul people's oral record contains references to a place beneath the Western Range where ceremony was conducted by the people who came before. Number 3. The limestone inscription gallery of Cape York. The limestone karst of Cape York Peninsula is the most extensive karst system in Queensland and one of the least surveyed cave environments in Australia. In 1994, a Torres Strait Islander community ranger, conducting a routine check of known art sites in the peninsula's southern karst zone, found a cave not on any existing register. The entrance was partially blocked by a collapsed limestone slab. When the ranger moved it, he entered a gallery approximately 30 metres long and 8 metres wide. The walls, from floor to ceiling on both sides, are covered in carved inscriptions, not painted, carved. The inscriptions are not petroglyphs in any conventional Australian rock art tradition. They are not panoramiti-style engravings. They do not resemble any recorded Queensland Aboriginal art form. They are geometric. Recurring series of horizontal lines, intersected by diagonal marks at regular intervals, interspersed with circular forms, and a recurring symbol resembling a bisected oval. Some inscriptions are at heights that would require scaffolding or a platform to produce. The cave ceiling shows evidence of sustained smoke exposure across its entire surface, consistent with repeated and prolonged occupation using fire for light. 2 academic researchers have since visited and described the inscriptions in one unpublished conference paper. The Wik-Munkan elders consulted by the ranger were not surprised by the existence of the cave. They were specific that it was not to be entered without ceremony. They described it as a place that belongs to the Deep Time people. Number 4. The sealed doorways of the Undara lava tubes. The Undara lava tube system in North Queensland is one of the longest lava tube systems on Earth, formed approximately 190,000 years ago by a massive volcanic eruption. The tubes open to the public represent a small fraction of the total known system. In the mid-1980s, during an early survey conducted ahead of the Undara Experience tourism operation, surveyors documented a section of tube in the northern extension showing signs of deliberate stone blocking. A series of basalt stones had been arranged across the full width of the tube at a point approximately 340 metres from the nearest surface access point. The stones were fitted together, leaving no gaps large enough for a person to pass through. They were not mortared. They were dry stacked with a precision, suggesting the people who built that wall understood exactly what they were doing. Behind the wall, acoustic testing suggested the tube continued for a considerable distance. The wall has never been dismantled or archaeologically assessed. The Awamian people, on whose country the Undara system sits, have described the deeper sections of the tubes as places where certain knowledge was stored. They have been consistent in their position that the sealed sections should remain sealed. 2 independent researchers who have subsequently examined the wall in person described the dry stone technique used as highly sophisticated and carefully executed, comparable in precision to the best dry stone construction found anywhere on the Australian continent. Number 5. The subterranean water network beneath the Darling Downs. The Darling Downs in southeast Queensland sits over the Condamine alluvial aquifer, one of the most significant groundwater systems in eastern Australia. Running through the sedimentary layers above the primary aquifer, there is a network of smaller interconnected void spaces mapped in detail for the first time during groundwater assessment work in the early 2000s. When these maps were compared against the known distribution of natural sinkholes across the downs, researchers noticed something not widely discussed. The void network is too regular. Natural karst development produces voids in patterns, reflecting random rock fracturing and irregular groundwater movement. What the Darling Downs mapping showed was a network of roughly cylindrical vertical shafts connecting to roughly horizontal lateral passages at consistent depths. The horizontal passages were consistently between 2 and 4 meters in diameter. The vertical shafts were consistently between 1 and 2 meters in diameter. The regularity of these dimensions across a network spanning several hundred square kilometres is not consistent with natural formation. The Bigambul and Camberwell peoples whose country covers this area have oral traditions describing a time when the water beneath the ground was managed and directed by people with knowledge since lost. Researchers in the field of ancient hydrology have noted that the Darling Downs subsurface dimensions are consistent with managed aquifer recharge systems, developed independently in several other parts of the ancient world. Number 6. The ochre processing chambers of the Bunya Mountains. The Bunya Mountains in southeast Queensland were one of the most significant ceremonial gathering sites in pre-colonial Australia. People came from across what is now Queensland, New South Wales, and further afield for the great bunya nut gatherings that took place every 3 years. What is less known is that the Bunya Mountains sit above an extensive system of shallow caves and rock shelters, some connecting to deeper chambers. In 2015, a researcher conducting heritage work for a proposed telecommunications installation found a previously unrecorded chamber beneath one of the known rock shelter sites. The chamber is accessed through a narrow fissure in the sandstone that widens into a space approximately 6 meters wide and 12 meters long. The floor is covered in a thick deposit of processed ochre, red, yellow, and white, in distinct compressed layers. The chamber walls show evidence of repeated fire use, and there are niches cut into the walls at regular intervals, each approximately 40 centimeters wide and 30 centimeters deep, each blackened from sustained fire use. The chamber was clearly used as a processing and storage space across a very long period. But the most interesting feature is the ventilation. The chamber has no natural air movement. It is sealed on all sides except for the entry fissure. Yet, 3 of the wall niches, when a candle is placed in them, show a consistent directional air movement that cannot be explained by the entry fissure alone. There are additional openings, almost certainly deliberately created, somewhere in the chamber that have not yet been located. The Jagera and Yugarapul peoples, whose country borders this area, have described the Bunya Mountains as a place where serious underground work was done. Number 7. The navigational void beneath Canavan Gorge. The Cathedral Cave within Canavan Gorge is famous for its stencil art, among the most significant concentrations of Aboriginal rock art in Queensland. Less known is a vertical shaft located approximately 40 meters from the Cathedral Cave entrance that descends to a lower level chamber. This shaft was first documented by a speleologist in the 1990s during an independent gorge survey. The lower chamber is roughly circular, about 12 meters in diameter, with a natural sandstone dome ceiling. What the speleologist documented was a set of carved channels on the chamber floor. They are not grooves made by water. They are cut into the sandstone in a radial pattern, lines moving outward from a central point toward the chamber walls. At the end of each channel, where it meets the wall, there is a small circular hole drilled into the stone. The holes pass through the chamber wall. The speleologist was able to insert a thin probe into each hole and confirm they connect to specific exterior points around the gorge formation's circumference. The chamber connects, through precisely positioned apertures, to specific locations in the surrounding landscape. Whether it functioned as an acoustic device, a navigational reference point, or a ceremonial orientation chamber, nobody has formally determined. The Bidjara people, whose country this is, have said that the lower levels of the gorge were used for finding direction in both the physical and the spiritual sense of that word. Number 8. The construction anomaly in the Chillagoe cave system. The Chillagoe Mongana Caves in far north Queensland are a complex of marble and dolomite towers riddled with cave systems of significant cultural importance. They are partially accessible as a national park. What the tours do not include is a section of the system approximately 2 kilometres north of the main tourist area, documented in a 1987 geological survey as Cave Complex North 7. Within this complex, there is a chamber with an unusual geometry. The chamber has a roughly rectangular footprint, which is unusual given that marble cave development tends strongly toward irregular rounded forms. More unusual is the floor. It is completely flat across a space of approximately 15 meters by 9 meters. The survey geologist noted that achieving this degree of flatness through natural processes in a marble cave environment would require a specific and sustained set of hydrological conditions unsupported by any other evidence in the plan surrounding system. The most straightforward explanation which the report did not endorse, but also did not rule out, is that the floor was worked. The chamber walls additionally show a consistent pattern of shallow horizontal grooves at a height of approximately 1 meter, running around the entire perimeter of the space. These grooves are too consistent in their depth and spacing to be natural. They appear to be measurement or marking lines of some kind. The Kuku-Jungan people, whose country includes the Chillagoe system, have cultural protocols around certain cave sections they describe as the shaped places. Number 9. The Deep Time Reservoir beneath the Atherton Tablelands. The Atherton Tablelands in the wet tropics region of North Queensland sit above a basalt plateau formed by volcanic activity over millions of years. Beneath the basalt, there are older, sedimentary, and limestone formations that have been incompletely explored. In 2001, during drilling for a rural water supply bore near Undara, the drilling crew hit a void at approximately 45 meters depth. The bore went straight through the void ceiling and into empty space for approximately 8 meters before hitting the void floor. The void was subsequently mapped using a small camera system lowered on the bore string. It was roughly oval in cross-section, about 20 meters wide and 30 meters long, with a flat floor. The camera imagery clearly showed the floor to be covered in flat stones, arranged in a pattern. The stones were not random. They were placed in concentric rings around a central stone that was larger and thicker than the surrounding material. The property owner reported the find to the relevant government authority. He was told the void was a natural karst feature and that the imagery was likely showing natural rock formation. He disagrees. He has kept the bore sealed, but retained copies of all camera footage. The Ngajong people, traditional custodians of the Atherton Tablelands, have a specific and named category in their oral tradition for places where old knowledge is kept in the ground, described as places that remember on behalf of the people when the people themselves can no longer hold the memory. Number 10. The sealed gallery beneath the Glasshouse Mountains. The Glasshouse Mountains in southeast Queensland are the eroded cores of ancient volcanoes, rising from the coastal plain of the Sunshine Coast hinterland as extraordinary isolated columns of rhyolite and trachyte. Almost nobody knows that the Glasshouse Mountains sit within a broader geological zone containing an extensive cave and void system in the surrounding sedimentary and limestone formations at the base of the volcanic intrusions. In 2019, a team of cavers operating under a landowner permit entered a previously unrecorded cave system, accessed from private property at the base of one of the smaller peaks. The system extended for approximately 400 meters before they reached a section that had been blocked. The blockage was deliberate. It was a dry stone wall constructed from rhyolite fragments, filling the full cross-section of the cave passage, which was at that point approximately 3 meters wide and 2 meters high. The wall showed no evidence of mortar or binding material. It was dry stacked with a precision that impressed the cavers, 2 of whom had professional backgrounds in stone construction. The wall blocked access to what acoustic testing suggested was a larger chamber beyond. On the wall's surface, facing the approaching cavers, there were carved marks, a series of concentric circles, a spiral, and a set of parallel vertical lines of varying length. The Gubbi people, whose country the Glasshouse Mountains sit within, have been consistent in their public statements that the mountains and the land around them contain knowledge belonging to the deep past and should not be disturbed without the consent of the custodians who hold responsibility for it. What all 10 of these sites share goes beyond the specifics of their individual features. They represent a clear, striking pattern. Across the breadth of Queensland, from Cape York limestone in the north to the Glasshouse Mountains in the southeast, from the Undara tubes in the northwest to the Darling Downs aquifer network in the south, there is evidence of sustained, deliberate, sophisticated human activity underground. This activity predates any formal archaeological understanding of what was happening on this continent. The oral traditions of the peoples, whose country these sites fall within, have consistently held that something significant happened here in the deep past. They have names for the people who did this work. They have protocols around the places where the evidence survives, and they have been saying for generations that those who came later should not be so confident they understand what was built here or why. Queensland's cave systems are not empty. They are not simply geological features sitting in the dark and waiting for a scientific explanation. They are the record of a civilization's relationship with the land beneath its feet across a time frame that makes the entire recorded history of Europe look like a single afternoon. The The oldest confirmed human remains in Australia have been dated to 65,000 years before the present. The people who built what sits beneath Queensland have been here and working and remembering for longer than almost any other human population on Earth. The next time you drive through Queensland's hinterland, through the sandstone country, past the volcanic peaks, across the wide black soil plains of the Downs, consider seriously what is underneath you. Every piece of ground you cross has been walked for a time frame so vast that our entire concept of ancient is inadequate to describe it. And some of those people, in the deepest and most deliberate places they ever occupied, left something behind that we are only now beginning to find. If this is the kind of story you come here for, subscribe and leave a comment below about which of these 10 structures you would most want to see properly and formally investigated. Tell us where you are watching from tonight. We are always genuinely interested in learning how far these stories manage to travel.